On the second week of February 2021, Oklahoma City faced daily temperatures below freezing as well as significant ice and snow. The OCU community had to adjust to the extreme weather conditions.
Well, I immediately compared to the little ice storm we had not too long ago, how it's like, all right, charge your stuff if the power goes out, get the blankets ready, all that stuff. It's like, be prepared.
Being from Minnesota, I'm used to seeing way more snow. So when people are being a little dramatic about how bad it is, I at first was like, really? I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. But then I learned that Oklahoma City doesn't have the same resources as Minnesota does. They don't have as many plows and salt trucks. So then I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Maybe people aren't overreacting.
OCU canceled all classes on Monday, February 8th and Wednesday, February 10th. Classes on Monday were canceled at 10 a.m. after students had been falling on the ice.
I think that they made the right decision. However, I do think that there were a lot of people hurt on Tuesday and Thursday that I heard about that had to go to their in-person classes and were slipping or falling, or I'd heard something about somebody getting like a knee broken.
I have fallen 3 times because of everything. I fell and hit my head. I fell on the steps outside of Gold Star on Thursday, and then walking home from a rehearsal, I fell and I dislocated my kneecap. Even though the days that practically nothing came out of the sky, it was dangerous to walk around. It was dangerous when we had school.
I do think it could have been handled a lot better to preserve, people, especially since we have such a big dance program, and a knee injury like that could absolutely ruin somebody's career.
Living in the unknown as to whether or not more classes are going to get canceled was a little stressful just because I didn't know what to do. My teachers weren't really reaching out. I saw somebody slip on the stairs around 9 a.m. and then it was 40 minutes later that they called it. So it might have been nice to have heard night before or even earlier that morning.
We've already dealt with a campus-wide power outage for days. And so if it, no matter how bad it gets, I'm sure it won't be too much worse than that.
So I was in my dorm room at about 10 o'clock last night, and the fire alarm went off, and naturally I expected it to be overlooked because it's been happening all week, and all of my roommates agreed that it was just something that we didn't need to worry about for the time being because it had been going off basically since Friday of last week.
We were told the fire alarms will keep going off because of the cold weather outside. Gotcha. So we've just kind of been trained to ignore it at this point. Oh yeah, they did that the day before.
We started hearing people running down the halls and screaming, and people were like, get out, get out.
I open my door, I see somebody running, yelling, it's flooding, and then I look out I peek my head out of the door even more, and I see all of these people in the hallway just standing there watching, and I'm like, what's going on?
I was on the 2nd floor at the time, so I went upstairs to the 4th floor where I live, and as I opened the door to the stairs, just water just poured down onto my feet, and I looked up and I saw that just the ceiling was falling down and water was pouring everywhere.
Hey, you're up! Evacuate the building!
Then we packed a quick bag. The RAs were like, hey, we need to evacuate. This is not a drill. All of this stuff. And it was really scary.
The pipe burst in the breezeway, but the water was spreading all the way down the hall on the, I don't know what side that is, on the baseball field side of the 4th floor. And then when we got down to the 1st floor, we saw water continuing to flow through the walls. And then we all just got sent outside in the negative 2-degree weather, whatever it was.
We got out and we all gathered in the front of the building. Everyone was explaining the different sides of the story that they heard. They were sharing the videos of what was happening on the 4th floor. And then all of the RAs tried to gather everyone into this university center, which was closed.
I heard about it about 4 minutes after I think things went down. Somebody posted in the group, in the non-sanctioned OCU group. Nobody was left with any communication beyond that of, leave the building. I knew that people were going to be posting offering help. And in order for people to keep things organized, I assumed let's just start a thread. And within, I think, 30 minutes, there would have been 25 locations for students to stay at, whether they be alumni that have already gone through OCU and are just hearing about it on the page and had no idea. People even on campus were saying, you know, I have one couch and one bed that's available.
And thankfully, I had friends who were staying in Walker, and they had extra beds, and I was able to stay with a friend. And then I stayed there pretty much for the remainder of that night into the morning.
I actually ended up going to a friend's apartment for a little bit, and I wasn't sure if I was going to have to stay there or whatever. But then we got called that we could come back to campus and be back to our rooms.
And then we heard that it was okay for us to go back into Methodist, but only to get our stuff. Again, it wasn't from an RA, it was just from students texting other students.
After everyone was let back into the building, I saw like maintenance up there working on it. They shut off the power on that side because there was like TV screens hanging in the water and like could have electrocuted people. So they turned off the power on that side, and then they also turned off the water.
Many students said they were frustrated by OCU's delayed response to the flooding incident in Methodist.
I think the situation was handled very poorly. I appreciate maintenance. Maintenance did incredible. They did everything they had to do in that situation. The RAs handled it very well, but school officials didn't do anything, which is upsetting because on Blue Alert, they were very quick to say, oh, it's getting icy outside, be careful on your way to campus and on your way to class. But then during a situation like this, there was nothing.
You know, just some communication from some higher up, I think, or even just checking in on, especially people that live on this side. It shouldn't be left just to RAs to make sure that we're not drowning.
We have the means to communicate effectively to all the students at a given time. And it is the responsibility of the OC administration to use those systems in place in order to fully ensure the safety and security of students that are paying plenty of money for those.
OCU sent out an email responding to the Methodist flooding on February 16th, 12:29 p.m., 12 hours after the incident occurred. Classes were still held that day despite many students not having power or a place to stay. Classes that day were eventually canceled, though, in an email sent out at 12:23 p.m. Some students said their professors were not informed of the incident at Methodist.
I think it's frustrating that I had to email my 9 a.m. teacher at like 2 a.m. last night saying, hey, I do not feel mentally prepared, physically, emotionally prepared for class tomorrow. And she only heard from students. So I would have appreciated it if they contacted us sooner regarding the cancellation of school.
I wish they would have had a statement late last night or something whenever it happened, rather than making us wait for so long, and professors would have been notified rather than all of us having to email them.
Overall, people are scattered. Then they also have to consider if they're going to classes or not, or if they're going to have to Zoom from their locations where are yet to be decided.
On February 16th, just one day after the Methodist flood, Walker Hall also had to undergo an evacuation at 12:05 p.m.
I had a lot of friends in Methodist when the entire ceiling collapsed, so I did have a friend staying in my extra bed because we're in a triple. I had been dealing with that. I had been up pretty late, and I woke up this morning expecting to go to class, but I was actually woken up by the power going out.
Our RA was like walking around, knocking on the doors, asking if we would rather be in a hotel or if we knew somebody. So it was just, there was a lot of confusion because they didn't really know what was happening and we didn't know what was happening. So some people were told that there were no classes for the day and that we were getting evacuated. And then other people were told that we still have classes and they're just checking up on us. So I was in ballet class, and then one girl was like, oh, my RA is evacuating us.
A lot of us thought that it was just the same thing, because sometimes our fire alarms just go off randomly. It got turned off after a couple seconds, but then it started going off again, and then we were like, oh, maybe this is for real. And I started smelling smoke in my room. And there was no like blue alert saying to like evacuate, so a lot of people weren't sure. We were asking around. I saw my RA and I was like, hey, what's happening? And he was like, I don't know.
The RAs were just like, they were really trying their best, trying to express to us, but I think they all kind of had like a different take on it.
The residents of Walker Hall were told at 12:35 that it was safe to return to the building. They were told the evacuation was due to a strange smell that appeared when trying to fix the heaters.
They had tried to turn the heating back on, and in their attempt, they had released some sort of exhaust that produced a smell, but it wasn't toxic or anything.
Many students' parents were contacted about the incident at Walker, but some students still said they felt left in the dark about both incidents at Walker and Methodist.
I think that it's kind of insane that the school didn't cancel classes or didn't say anything publicly for like 15 hours from Methodist, like literally falling apart. I think that is kind of unacceptable, and that they should have had a response earlier. They responded to ice and a car accident earlier than they responded to half their students being displaced, which is concerning. And it seems that teachers also were very unaware of the situation. My friends who had gen eds went to the classes and they were like, fully, where is everybody? What is happening? So it seemed that there was just overall a lack of communication.
I understand that they can't control the weather. I'm not saying that they should be able to, because obviously that's impossible. And even if they don't have answers, I would love just a blue alert saying, hey, we don't have answers yet, but we're working on it.
With the heaters in Walker being fixed, students did not need to be relocated to hotels. However, some Methodist residents still stayed at friends' apartments and dorms.
With COVID and everything, people are having to, I know someone who's currently like crashing in a Cokesbury apartment that's meant for 2 people, but there's 6 people in it. They don't have anywhere else to go. But then I'm concerned that's going to obviously affect COVID, and we're going to have like another surge, which could definitely happen because we saw it happen during the ice storm.
I feel safe because of the amount of people who were willing to help me in that situation. Like, the students have been incredible, like supporting each other and everything.
The OCU community is incredibly strong in the fact that we go through very difficult things and always come out brighter at the end. For that, I think there's just something truly special here if we look at it.